So my name is Benjamin Hein. I'm an assistant professor of history here in the Department of History at Brown. I recently published my first monograph-length study titled The Migrant's Spirit: How Industrial Modernity Came to the German Lands. The Migrant Spirit is a study of the great drama of the Industrial Revolution as it unfolded in Germany during the 19th century, and it considers that history from the perspective of the kinds of personal and individual choices that contemporaries had to make as they were confronted with a rapidly changing world. And the question I'm asking in this book is how people make those choices to participate in these kinds of new modernities. How do they make the choice to embrace these new technologies and institutions? Contemporaries, in trying to make those choices, were looking for advice. They were looking for encouragement. They were looking for people to give them guidance as to how to navigate these challenges associated with industrial modernity. In the German case, around the middle of the 19th century, a growing number of people turned to family members, relatives, former neighbors who actually lived halfway around the world in the Americas, and in particular in North America and the United States, where there was a growing German-speaking diaspora in this period that dated to the 18th century, that had grown significantly in the early 19th century, and that had begun to engage in a lively transatlantic, one might call it cultural exchange, with the communities that they had left behind back in Europe, in German states at the time. So I opened the book with a painting by a 19th century genre painter titled A Letter from America. And what this painting shows is a family sitting around a wooden bench table in a fairly rudimentary home in Germany, who have just received this letter. And what this painting does is really emphasizes the kind of gripping aura that these so-called news from America had. And I use that image not just to show that contemporaries recognized there was something special about information coming from the diaspora abroad, but to also use it as a starting off point that is something we need to explain. We cannot assume that simply because information is available to people, they will act on it. One of the things that I do in this book is I look at a wide range of individuals. I look at anybody from peasant artisans, craftspeople, farmers, to professionals, to politicians, to bankers and industrial tycoons. So the book explores how transatlantic exchanges were part of those decision-making processes in different sites, from questions about occupational mobility is what it was called, the ability to choose one's profession rather than following a predetermined path. I write about domestic spaces, the idea of the homemaker and breadwinner household. I think about the corporation, I think about foreign direct investment. These were all different sites that were quite critical to putting together or enabling the kinds of changes that contemporaries identified as the Industrial Revolution. When I first started writing this book, following the research I'd done in German and US archives, I thought I was going to end up with a story about transnational history. And in fact, what I ended up finding is that this was oftentimes not so much an exchange across cultures as it was within a culture. One of the reasons why contemporaries in Germany approached and trusted people who lived halfway around the world in another place, people who they never could expect to see in person. The reason why they trusted them is because they considered them to be part of the same national community. So the book tells a longer history of how it was that Germans in Europe could imagine Germans in North America to be part of the same national community. But it's very important because it established the kind of trust that was necessary for these exchanges to take place. And that trust oftentimes broke down once people stopped believing that the other side was part of the same kind of political community. So this became very much a story of exchanges within an imagined German national community rather than across different cultures between, let's say, German culture and American culture, German culture and Canadian culture, and so on and so forth. So that was one of the surprises, I think, that even though we're talking about a history that unfolds across a very disparate geography around the world, that doesn't necessarily mean we're talking about a cosmopolitan story or a transnational story.